Alert. We're surrounded by helplessness. Now, I hope you're having a great day, but you, like most of us, will certainly encounter someone having a bad day now and then. Here are 3 points, 3 practical tools you can use to get back your power or to help a friend or loved one get their power back. I'm Roach, Mark Roach. I'm here to help you get what you want, what you need, and to understand the difference. Your natural power, your focus in this very moment, in every moment of your life, and your heartfelt intention are superpowers. Helplessness and limited thinking, pathways in your mind, may just be your kryptonite. Bear with me here. Let me unpack focus, intention, and power, perhaps in a new way you've not yet considered. In regard to power, consider how much passion and power are in a 13-year-old coming into adolescence. How much creativity is at this young person's easy access. They're blind to it, and it's all natural and organic. Think about how much attractiveness, how much life, in fact, the beauty and power that many of these young people possess are far beyond what they could have ever imagined or created themselves. And, who am I to say why God made us this way? But obviously, there is a grand design at play here. These two forces, classically posed as beauty and the desire of a female, for example, and a virile young soldier, perhaps even violent young man, overwhelmed with feelings and possibility. And if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. The power of that phase of their life where they're coming into their own creativity gives them the power to create far beyond their years, at least by our standards. So years later, having gone through that myself, and I'm around a lot of older individuals, I see a lot of people making rules about this and that, about right and wrong, advice to offer those young people as far as guidance for those individuals who are starting their new lives in the throes of this creativity, in the throes of these passions, the rage, the attraction, the narrative that seems to all be running on its own within our bubble here. And in the United States, there's such a narrative around greed and materialism and control and deliberation. And if the hooks of spirituality have not been set in these individuals when they're coming of age here, well, these passions and the power, when they get loose outside of the home, outside of the community, they can run amok. And that's where people learn hard life lessons and get defeated and end up feeling helpless. So there is some entertainment of pain and potentially powerful lessons in these individuals. And as a parent watching these children try to corral all of this power and creativity in the course of their life, well, it's overwhelming as you watch them try to make their way through their life, holding on to some of that passion and power and attractiveness and dealing with the rage and the mystery. And if you're trying to comfort them along the way, I salute you. Hold their hand. Share what you've learned with nobility. And look for them to offer an ear. There's nothing more frustrating than to try to offer encouragement or inspiration to those that are not ready to hear, whose ears haven't been opened up, to invite you in and allow you to share or cushion the blows that may lie ahead of them. And if you've felt the Spirit in your heart open up to them as a resource, perhaps in your own way, perhaps in silence, waiting them to express their longings, their confusion to you, and you can feel them tug at your heart, well, you're a lucky person to have the chance to touch them. Let me give you a couple more tools. Once you recognize that power, realize that focus is so important to honing that power. And take note of the stories that we're hearing and the stories that we are repeating, because those may bear witness or be evidence to us as to what our focus really may be. So if you find yourself repeating something to yourself or to your friends or in your social media over and over again, there's a theme that you may want to examine and hold on to and look deeper in, because it may help reveal your greater focus in life, which you may have deliberately orchestrated, or it could be sneaking up on you. But in any event, examining that may give you some insight as to where your spirit may be pointing. So many of us repeat these flawed stories in our blindness, and until examined carefully, often in silence, we don't tap into the majesty, the power of focus. So that, you know, the stories that we repeat are so often thriving on the rush that we're in. And it seems to many of us that it's impractical to take the time to evaluate or vet these stories. And that puts us in a position of assured destruction and helplessness. Because the faster you run, the faster you repeat, the more mindless that you are in this process of hearing and repeating and acting essentially in blindness. It turns you into a watcher or just a channel between these different powerful entities that are battling for power and are ultimately seeking what you have. You know, ultimately, you know, that power that I spoke to earlier is seated in your focus. And once you get control and can manage your focus, then that gives you access to the power and intention, which I'll speak to shortly. But we have to find ways to ground ourselves in reality and access that focus and thereby our power in the moment. So the second point here is to take note of the focus you find yourself entertaining in the moment. And that's an entry point for you at any point in time into your spirit and your soul if you use it right. And thirdly, take note of your intention. You know, when there's a synchronicity between desire that's inclusive of your needs, it's a magical feeling. Let me repeat that. The desires that you have and the needs that you have are different. They don't always overlap with each other. When they do, it can be a very magical feeling. You know, it's almost like if you go on vacation and you relax and you enjoy this certain setting and you imagine yourself back at work, or maybe you're suffering and struggling with the work or the relationships or the environment that you're in, or the rat race and the pace of versus the feeling of relaxing and being in control to some degree in an environment that you really enjoy. Well, it's that contrast that when it no longer is a contrast, that it becomes a magical feeling. And I'm not being naive here, because I do believe that there is a supernatural power at work that over time can, and sometimes people are just lucky. You know, they are born into a family, they're stumble onto a relationship or a situation where their needs and their desires are completely in sync. So that synchronicity between the needs and the desires can feel like it's magical, especially if that's not the way you were raised. It's so ingrained into our conditioning that only self-betrayal and sacrifice are worthy and beneficial of being valued here on earth. The spiritual truth that we'd love to encourage and see emerge involves faith that such a new platform of honesty and transparency is being formed. So I invite you to be part of that reality, that platform, that movement to transcend the patterns that historically have kept us locked up in these pointless battles. And if you look around, you see that we're, today, as far as long as we, sometimes we believe we pat ourselves on the back for making all these technological and social improvements, for passing laws that free people when they actually maintain almost like the laws were never passed, because not everybody's really enjoying or letting themselves enjoy the freedoms that we've gained. And that ground that I'm describing taking right now, of escaping the helplessness, using power and intention and focus, is to grab onto a higher ground where we can actually connect with each other stronger spiritually in a way that we have yet to really achieve and sustain here on earth. You know, it was Einstein that pointed out that something greater cannot evolve from something lesser. I mean, I think he was talking about physics, but I think this applies to life as well, that to make a quantum leap, you really do have to find a new way of being, a new way of relating. And that's what I'm outlining here. And I think it reminds me of what Jesus came to earth to attempt, was a spiritual revolution. I mean, he basically said these old ways that you've been working with religion, with worship, with God, are no longer necessary. That, and I think he basically was giving access to supernatural connection to everyone. You no longer have to go through a priest or some dogmatic sacrifice ritual. He made the sacrifice for us, and figuratively opened up the pathway for everyone to have direct access to their divinity. And for a great part of time over the last 2,000 years, this has been overlooked. And what's happened is these people basically recreated the old hierarchies and divisions within the old way of working, and totally forgot that his new ministry gives us all direct access to God to the divinity in us. And, prior to that point in time, it was only given to the priest and to the chosen. So these are powerful tools. And I offer a practical challenge to yourself is to allow yourself to want exactly what you already have. We're so trained to want something more than we feel that we are. We devalue ourselves in the moment. And we feel like we have to fill an endless list of wants in life. And I'm here to tell you that's an illusion. That's a dark alley awaiting your vulnerability to engulf you in the world. And only when you realize that you already have it all, and that it may take some time for you and all the truly meaningful relationships in your life to come to terms with this truth, only then will you find peace and contentment. I'm Roach, Mark Roach. Use these 3 tools to remember your power. Claim it, own it with your focus and intention in your life. All the best.